Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show, podcast edition. I'm dressed down a little bit because I'm hanging out with my friend John Ondrasik, Fight for Fighting and entrepreneur. I got a chance to hang out with John. It was last week, right? It was last Thursday.
Yeah, in Houston.
And in Houston at
Yeah.
the Heights Theater, which was a really nice venue. I got a chance to hang out before and after your show. And John, I got to tell you, and I think I told you this that night too, is that you talked to me about coming down, watch my keynote speech. And it was like, okay, I'm not sure what the keynote speech thing is. But that sounds interesting. I wasn't sure if you were even performing, right? So, well, what's this all about? Piano's there. It's like, so you singing? Oh yeah, no, I'll do a few songs. Like, okay. And I did not know that your entrepreneurial background, your family business, and family business is music, but it's also completely different. I don't know how much you want to talk about that today, but I did get the most awesome swag from that chat, and that is my little miniature HEB basket.
Well, you are holding the best shopping cart in the world there, Ed.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I love this cart. I love these carts at HEB. You're right. This is the best shopping cart in the world.
Yeah, I've been blessed to grow up in the Ondrasik family business. It's a company called Precision Wire, has roots back to 1911, founded by my grandfather in 1946, and have made things out of wire ever since. Oven racks, dog cages. Our claim to fame now is that we make the best shopping cart in the world. My dad took over in the 70s when my grandfather passed away. My dad was an astrophysicist, worked at NASA at JPL. And
Yep.
so he took his engineering skills and how to build machines and actually built the computers to run the machines, which I wish he would have just marketed those computers. Then we'd have a much different conversation. But and redesigned the shopping cart. And yeah, Costco, HEB, Albertsons. So I kind of grew up in that acumen and kind of have a sense of what it takes to run a business and make a payroll and workers' comp. And so I bring that kind of experience along with my music kind of career and all things creativity to these keynotes. And I play, as you said, play a few songs. And that night we were talking to entrepreneurs in Houston, which I love. I love entrepreneurs. Because songwriters are entrepreneurs as well. We start with nothing and create something.
I mean, what I was actually fascinated by was, first off, the precision wire stuff, which I had no idea. I had no idea that you were the man behind my favorite shopping cart. And, but also the entrepreneurial approach in music. I mean, you're a creator. We're going to get into First Amendment stuff here too, because obviously that's what we're going to talk about. I just kind of had to share some of this though, because it was so fascinating to listen to you discuss your music from the entrepreneurial point of view. And I have to tell you, the story you tell, and I don't want to give too much away. I don't know how much you want to share about this. The story you tell about the song "I Just Love You" was so touching. And when I shared it with everybody, they would go, "Oh," and it's I don't know how much you want to give away about that, but and everybody said, "I don't understand why that song wasn't a hit. It was such a beautiful song," and it is a beautiful song. You talk also about in this talk about what the different things are that go into songs actually becoming hits. But I mean, I was just fascinated by the links between your family business and the entrepreneurial creative process that requires an entrepreneurial approach. And I was just really amazed at how well those two knitted together. And of course you did a great job talking about this stuff. It was so entertaining.
Well, thanks. Yeah, again, I think talent is a very small component of success in the arts. So much of it goes into things that any business runs: work ethic, relationships, humility, taking rational risks, learning from failure. All that stuff goes into being successful and kind of in life, really. And again, for me, I got lucky that the stars aligned. And I Just Love You, as you mentioned, is a song that my daughter gifted to me when she was 4 years old, because one of the tools I use that is critical is just listening. Listening. I hear songs, I hear people talking, and those experiences, if you're a songwriter, you can take those and turn them into songs. And one night I called the house like any other night, and on the road, and she answered and said, "Daddy, I have something to tell you." And I said, "What's going on, sweetheart?" She said, "I just love you." And I said, "I love you too." She said, "Daddy, I'm talking. Listen to me." She's like her mother that way. She says, "Daddy, I just love you. I don't know why. I just do." And, that's just a moment that, that you love in your heart. But as a songwriter, you're like, that, there's a song there. And we wrote the song. And why songs are hits or not hits, I mean, who knows? A lot of it is just kind of fortune and
Yeah, it's just kismet. I think a lot of that's just kismet, right? I mean,
yeah.
it just, yeah.
And also, Superman, when it came out, radio didn't want to play it because it wasn't 1970. It was 1999, 2000. Lilith Fair boy bands, and the piano was not on the radio. So a lot of it is what's happening. And if you're able to break through with something relatively new, then you can have one of these really kind of monster hits. But again, those are few and far between.
Right. And you talked about the work that goes into that too. It's not just magic. There's a lot of
Oh,
hard
yeah.
work that goes into that,
Yeah.
networking and stuff like that. Really great talks. If you ever get a chance to see John, or let me put it to you this way. If you're a group, an entrepreneurial group, you should reach out to John and have him come talk to you, because you'll get an experience that you won't want to miss. Talking about your daughter, she's also a musician, so
Yeah.
she's sometimes performs with you. You do that.
Yeah.
You do that song as a duet, which I think is really, really special. And you could see when you're telling the story how special it is to you. So that's really a cool part of that too.
No doubt. Yeah, she comes out on our string quartet tour. We're actually starting one in a few weeks on the West Coast. She opens for me with her partner Caroline Laceland Lee, and she doesn't tell anybody she's my daughter because she wants to earn it, and I give her credit. But halfway through our set, when I'm playing "I Just Love You," she'll sneak out and sing the song with me. And as I said in my talk, I haven't made it through quite yet without choking up a little bit. But it's very sweet, and I'm very.
I think your audiences probably have trouble getting through that without choking up too.
Some people, yeah.
And then, not to get too far off the beam here, but great news yesterday. Your wife, Carla, just came out with her first book. I don't know if you saw this, but I snuck that into the final word, somewhere in the middle of the final word last night.
It's so nice. Thank you. Again, my wife, Carla, her story's amazing. She had a kind of rough childhood and came to Los Angeles at 17 years old with a suitcase. Oof. And worked really hard and ended up kind of becoming one of the top executives in the music business. That's how we met. She actually found me in a piano bar on Melrose and Vine. It actually happens, Ed. And for years I was just an income stream to her, but then she saw the light, and we've now been married 28 years. But
That's
her
amazing.
whole philosophy of doing and not making excuses, and the book Stop Trying really kind of talks about her life philosophy of 40 years. And she's been sharing that with people, throughout her whole life, and really making an impact on people's lives. And now with this book, Stop Trying, I think she's going to do that on a global scale. So as a husband, I'm very proud. We're having her first book signing tonight. And it's fun also to see her on the other side of the table, because forever she was the executive and dealing with artists. Now that she's the artist, she has all the insecurities that we feel. Oh my God, they didn't call me back, or what's going on, or my book went down from number 2 to number 3 on Amazon. All the stuff so that makes me giggle as well. But thank you for letting folks know about her book.
Well, and folks, by the way, there will be a link in the show post to Carla's book.
Thank you.
So yeah, absolutely. We're going to make sure that people know about the book. And I love the little video that she did with it. Apparently she's brand new on Twitter too. So that's actually kind of fun. I followed her on Twitter. That's also fun. So Stop Trying is the name of the book by Carla Ondrasik. And again, we'll have a link in the post here someplace to note that. But this is sort of getting us into the creative view when it comes to First Amendment issues. And of course, this is the, not so much with the shopping carts. Those are awesome though. But I mean, obviously this is coming up. We're talking about what happened with Jimmy Kimmel Live, Jimmy Kimmel's use of the First Amendment, the question as to whether or not government should have even been commenting on this. I think that there was a sort of this Schadenfreude moment on the right, was like, and it was like, wait, maybe we should think about this a little bit. And on top of that, of course, yesterday, Google coming out and admitting that they were uh, being pressured by White House officials, specifically White House officials, to censor people and to kick people off the platform, even though they weren't saying anything or doing anything wrong, simply because they didn't like the speech that was going on. And that didn't get a whole lot of attention, I guess, from the mainstream media, who are very invested in talking about Jimmy Kimmel's First Amendment rights. This is complicated, right? I mean, there's free market forces in play here. There's affiliate forces in play. Brendan Carr's remarks. I'm curious as to we'll just start off by saying, where are you at with all of this? What are your thoughts on this as a creator?
Well, first of all, Jimmy Kimmel has to convince himself he's a free speech martyr, or else face the fact that he's a liar and
Yeah.
a raging hypocrite, as is most of the media. But as you said, I think the FCC chairman chiming in was incredibly foolish. And of course, President Trump's, remarks that are always are a little kind of over the top about, we're going to sue them, is also foolish. And as you mentioned, the media has been canceling conservatives for 10 years and celebrating it. And all of a sudden they find a narrative, frankly, in my mind, to distract from Charlie Kirk's assassination. But they've been desperate for a narrative to rally around and say, those guys are the bad guys. And the FCC guy gave them a little license for that. And, you got Ted Cruz coming out and saying that. And I agree with that. I thought that was a foolish mistake. But, Kimmel is embracing this because he knows it'll make him a darling of the left. And it will also, again, give the Brian Stelters and the Jake Tappers, a reason to go on their rants. As we know, they were instrumental in canceling many conservatives and celebrated it. I actually had an experience when I wrote Blood on My Hands about the Afghan withdrawal. As you know, Ed, I mentioned Milley and Austin and Blinken and the President Biden. And
Yep.
YouTube, there was and YouTube took it down. And it was because it was impacting the left, and it was resonating within the culture around the world, actually. And they took it down, and they had to come back and apologize and put it back up with like 3 warning slides. But, I lived through that, of course, on Twitter. If you looked at the Twitter files from Matt Taibbi, there was clear record of coordination with the White House and social media teams, not just canceling conservatives, but canceling the president of the United States. So again, I take their criticisms in their kind of insane raging as a joke. But at the same time, I do agree that I'm glad Kimmel came back, and I'm glad that Disney made it clear that it was an HR issue. Really, what this is an HR issue. It's an HR issue. It's not about free speech. It's not about the democracy. It's not about 400 actors and Tom Hanks signing a letter or Sarah McLachlan not playing a show. It's an HR issue because he committed insubordination. They suspended him. They came back. And some stations don't want him back, which I think that's fair too. So again, it's a long answer to your question, but I do think from the Republican side, and it's true that that ABC, NBC, and CBS are basically campaigning for Democrats. They have been forever. What is the equivalent to The View or Jimmy Kimmel on ABC on the right? There's no show. There's no show that you can point to and say, well, yeah, there's Jimmy Kimmel and there's The View, but hey, there's this show. There's a Sean Hannity on. There's no show like that. So it is an in-kind donation, but they're dying on the vine. Colbert is going to be gone, in a few months. Jimmy Kimmel's going to be gone when his
contract's up in March. His contract's up in March, right? Yeah, and the show was dying anyway, right?
It's dying. So just let it die. Don't give them the the actually talking points to look at it as a free speech issue. So that's my long answer to your question. I'd be interested in what your thoughts are.
So, I mean, my thoughts aren't that far off from your thoughts, right? We haven't, I mean, we didn't just, I guess I can say full disclosure, we didn't really discuss this a whole lot before we started rolling this thing. So we're both kind of coming at it at this cold. It's pretty much the same. Now, where I would say there are edges to this. Well, first off, let me say this. I think it's more valuable to have Jimmy Kimmel on the air making himself so that we can judge that, right? Than it is to have him artificially off the air or suspended. I will also say this, though. It is not unusual in the broadcast business to suspend hosts that say terrible things. It's actually fairly common.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Opie and Anthony, wasn't it? Anthony, I can't think of his last name. You know him, right?
I don't know him, but I remember the event you're talking about. Yeah.
Anthony Cumia got bounced off the air for a week because he said something stupid, right? And Opie and Anthony kind of made a habit of saying something stupid. It's sort of like a Howard Sternish sort of feel. And Anthony Cumia kind of got more serious after that. But that's not unusual. You get radio hosts that get out over their skis and say something offensive, and you usually end up getting a week without pay while they fill in with Les Nessman from WKRP or something like that. Just they hold your spot and then you come back. So I mean, honestly, this isn't really that unusual in the broad. Maybe at that level, it's a little unusual. But I think that because Sinclair and Nexstar, these are the two affiliate groups that control 25% of ABC's affiliates, but actually broadcast to 40% of ABC's audience. I think that they were already coming to Disney and saying, we're sick of this, especially the comments that were made. That's the kind of free market response that I'm fine with. The problem is, of course, Nexstar and Sinclair also have to deal with the FCC. And so when Brendan Carr stepped in there, Sinclair and Nexstar has a acquisition deal that's going to require FCC approval. So there's this hint that was part of what motivated it. And I think Sinclair's got something going on as well. So people are pointing at that and saying, well, this is the issue. And now you've got Democrats in Congress saying, well, we need to break up Sinclair. We need to break up. The same people that just got done, clamoring for approval for George Soros to buy 200 radio stations suddenly wants to break up Sinclair.
Well, and also blaming Trump for Kimmel being off the air. Yeah. So all of a sudden, well, again, that's the Democrats and sometimes Republicans too. Hypocrisy. It depends on, it depends on who you're attacking, what the narrative is. But you're right. The FCC commissioner getting involved was a huge mistake. And the fact that he hasn't kind of adjusted his rhetoric too is a problem. But again, I think you're right. At the end of the day, and again, what Kimmel said, and I do believe that it was not some kind of off the cuff. And again, he didn't apologize for it, but basically blaming Charlie Kirk's assassination on a MAGA Republican. That was coordinated, because if you look at the polls, most Democrats believe it was a right-wing Republican who killed Charlie Kirk. And they saw that this moment was transcending and affecting the culture in ways nothing has had in decades, in my mind. And they needed to get out to their viewers and their audiences. And you see this in the media still, people still saying, well, we're not sure what happened. So it wasn't some slip of the tongue. And the fact that he didn't apologize for it kind of, in my mind, kind of validates that. So it was a despicable thing that he did. And if any Republican voice had done that, they would be clamoring for his head. And he probably, they wouldn't be back on the air. But again, I do think the right thing to do is just let it breathe. Colbert's going to be gone. Kimmel's going to be gone. You're seeing the acquisition of CBS by Skydance. Let's hope Barry Weiss gets that job and brings fairness to the media, and NBC and ABC as well. I think their time is coming. So let's not give them a leg to stand on with this, free speech, in my mind, kind of fraudulent narrative. And just let it play out. but but we always seem to put our foot in our mouth one way or another, Ed. So let's see what happens.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this, because this was the prevailing attitude the first 24 hours after Jimmy Kimmel said that MAGA is exploiting Charlie Kirk's death to cover up the fact that it was one of them that killed him, which was completely false, was verifiably false at the moment he said it, had been known for at least a couple of days prior to that. You have people who, especially after what's happened the last 3 or 4 years of the entire 4 years of the Biden administration, with suppressing conservative speech on big tech platforms like Twitter before the Twitter files, Facebook, Google now admitting that they were kicking people off of YouTube. People who were making their living on YouTube had their businesses basically destroyed by the Biden administration's attempts to censor American speech. And when you argue that you don't want to set the precedent that the FCC can intervene in speech on broadcast air, even though there's technically they have a sort of a hook into it based on the public interest around broadcast licensing, people will say the precedent's already been set. You can't play by Marquette to Queensberry rules because they've already set these precedents. And so basically you're not fighting. And I think that there's something to that. I think it's certainly emotionally satisfying to say, we're going to use the same tactics on you. And I was talking to Andy McCarthy about this at NRO when I was guest hosting at Relevant Radio last week. And Andy said, at some point, somebody's got to stop, because otherwise this is just going to become the norm. And you don't want this to become the norm. It means that you're going to basically give up on the First Amendment altogether. And I think that's right too. And it's a difficult line to toe. And as somebody who's been on the, I don't know that I was terribly a victim of White House censorship. Certainly they went after our advertisers at Hot Air, but I mean, you certainly were on the front lines of this with some of the music that you were creating on YouTube over the last few years. Do you agree that you have to fight fire with fire, or do you agree that at some point we have to establish the lines in the sand for the First Amendment? And it's not an easy question. It's not even really easy to answer it, I think, in one answer.
Well, I think the difference you see between Republicans and Democrats in this age wasn't true in the past, is Republicans will call out their own. They will criticize their own. They will shame their own. You see it right now with Tucker Carlson. Many conservatives who love Tucker for decades are really calling him out for his kind of anti-Semitism, his craziness. And I think what you do on the right, you certainly do not let the left forget their hypocrisy. Basically, everybody that is saying this is the greatest free speech violation in history on the media were the same people that told us Joe Biden was fine for 4 years. So you don't let them forget it. You don't
Kimmel included. Kimmel was one of the guys that was fronting for Biden, right? I mean,
well, of course, yeah. And Jake Tapper wrote the book, about everything that he did. So you don't let them forget it, and you expose them to minimize and again kind of ridicule their power that is waning. But I also think when it is something that you feel is egregious, and again, I don't think I think what Trump said in the FCC commission was wrong. I don't think that had anything to do with Kimmel's suspension. But when you do see that, you do what Ted Cruz did. You call it out. You say, this is wrong. This is not who we are. And we need to reject this. And I think we're doing that. And I think as long as we continue to do that, we won't play their game. And I think, when we see it, we call it out, just like we're calling out Tucker, just like Ted Cruz did. The beauty of the Republican Party is there is this willingness to battle over ideas. And you never see that in the Democratic Party. You never see anybody on what Democrat has come out and said that Jimmy Kimmel lied about Charlie Kirk's, assassination. There's one voice. There's John Fetterman, right, who is the one voice of reason, particularly when it comes to Israel. But I think we call out our own. and we hold them accountable, just like we hold the left accountable. That's a sign of a healthy party. And to me, that's why the Democrats are waning. Now, can we give that back? Yes, I do think, President Trump needs to, in my mind, leave it alone. They're dying on the vine. You don't need to sue ABC. Let the market kind of take over and do what we've always done. Speak honestly about what we believe, and don't be afraid to criticize our own, including the president, which many of us have done for a long time.
Right.
To me, that would be the appropriate way to handle it.
So you bring up Tucker Carlson, and I think it's interesting because Tucker's been pretty controversial on the right now for quite a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get too far into Tucker's insanity because that's what it is. He and Candace Owens have kind of gone off the deep end. But he was at Candace wasn't, but he was at the memorial service and kind of had a weird moment, which I think was useful in its way. But I think that they're trying to make a statement in this memorial. I didn't really watch much of it because, you and I kind of discussed this when I was down in Houston with you, is that this was pretty overwhelming for a lot of us. And I just needed a weekend away from everything, basically. So I caught up with some of the speeches later. And I was very impressed. I didn't really catch up to Tucker's because I kind of read some stuff about what Tucker said.
Yeah.
But I think it does point out that, first off, there was at least some diversity of thought that was tolerated, if you will, at this. I think that the moment, though, we can talk about free speech or First Amendment in a different context, because this was very much most of it was very much tied to faith. Charlie Kirk was very much a Christian evangelist. That was part of his mission. That was part of what he was doing on these college campuses. His wife is committed to that as well. And I was impressed with the expressions of faith from Donald Trump. He's kind of trying to make it a little bit lighter reference, talking about how Erica was going to come up here and say, "Forgive your enemies. I don't like to do that," sort of thing. And,
yes.
I mean, that was kind of a light moment. But it was very much focused around faith. And this is another part that I think has been excluded. It's a First Amendment issue too, because the First Amendment guarantees the right to religious expression. And religious expression just doesn't mean within the walls of a church. It means being able to live your faith in public. And we have 6-7 decades of secularist culture that has really tried to shut that down. And I would argue that it's replaced it with nihilist religion instead, which is all about narcissism and death. And this, to me, was sort of a declaration that we're going to put faith back in the public square. And you saw immediately the reaction to this. And I'm not saying that the reaction to this should be shut down. Far from it. I believe in the First Amendment, right? But it's Christian nationalists. It's Christian nationalists going to take over. It's a theocracy that's going to take over this. And I don't think most people think that when you talk about forgiving your enemies and when you talk about spreading love and the gospel on campuses. That is not a theocracy. That is what you would normally expect Christians to do in any society, especially in one that is supposed to be free to have those types of discussions. And to me, the Jimmy Kimmels of the world are actually frightened of the First Amendment. They're talking about being martyrs for the First Amendment. They're actually frightened of the First Amendment. They don't want actual free speech. They don't want freedom of religious expression. They want to control the public square. And that was what the Biden administration censorship regime was all about as well. And that, to me, is a real tell.
No, I think you're right. And look, I'm not a super religious person. I'm not an atheist, but like many, I kind of have my doubts. My sister is a Presbyterian minister, but I live my life according to the Judeo-Christian ethic, which is the background of Western civilization that has been stifled, that has been lost, and frankly is under siege right now.
Right.
Because what this really is, it is a battle of religions, because wokeism is a religion. People need something to put their beliefs in, to have faith in. And for many who are secular, that's wokeism, that's climate change. And that's what people like Jimmy Kimmel believe. And they believe it's a battle of kind of survival for culture. So whenever they see anything, and especially like the service for, Charlie, 200,000 people praying, it does scare them because the imagery is so counter to their beliefs. What happened when George Floyd was killed? Everyone's talked about it. Riots, killings, burning down buildings. What happened when Charlie was killed? Prayer services. That is a threat to them. So they have to eliminate that. And that's why this whole free speech narrative of Jimmy Kimmel was convenient for them, to give them something to say, look, they're bad too. It just so happens that their guy got suspended, our guy got killed. But what you said, you used the word useful, Ed. And this is what I think sometimes Republicans or people just don't understand. Free speech is critical to find out who the bad guys are. We want to know, when Keith Olbermann basically threatened Scott Jennings, we want to see that, to know what's in his heart. When Hamas comes out and basically says, we use kids, for human shields, so useful idiots, support us. We want them to say that. And you know what is a huge gift to Republicans? The View. The View. It basically changed the election. Kamala going on there and saying, I do nothing. Every day, they give sound bites, like many on the left, that go online, and normal people, normies, who may be liberal, may be conservative, go, I don't know what necessarily I believe on this, but they're crazy. Those people are crazy. And what I am is not them. So a lot of this free speech stuff, we want Kimmel going out there with Gavin Newsom saying, there's going to be no election in 2028. Because most people of sound mind look at him and go, that guy's crazy. That guy's an idiot. So free speech is a gift to all of us because we want to see, we don't want to stifle it. Because frankly, what really changed the zeitgeist, after Biden was elected, was America saw the craziness in the left. We saw it. We saw it in the media. We saw it in Hollywood. We saw it in, Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel and through COVID. So again, it's not only important, it defines who we are as a civilization, democracy. It lets us know who people are, and that's why it's so important. That's why it was so important for Elon Musk to buy Twitter and he's not canceling people on Twitter. He's not canceling Keith Olbermann. He's not canceling, kind of the Jew haters. It's like, let's everybody see who we all are, and then let's battle for ideas, and may the best idea win.
Yeah, it's got to be that way, right? I mean, it's sort of like, and again, it's sort of like the music business. Get your song out there and let the best songs. That doesn't explain Undercover Angel in 1977. I will admit to that. That was a market failure, but no. And not even the worst song of that era, by the way. But it's just the dumbest. But you mentioned The View and Kamala Harris being on The View. It's going to lead us into another topic that I know you want to talk about. Kamala Harris went on The View this week, right? Or I think, was it today's Wednesday? I think it was Monday. Yeah. Or it may have been yesterday. Yeah. It was right after Donald Trump had spoken at the UN. And to say that Kamala Harris was unimpressed by Donald Trump is to, say that, the Vesuvius was just a little bit of puff of smoke, and Pompeii had some civic infrastructure issues after it exploded. She wasn't happy at all, and neither were the rest of the people on The View. And she was almost incoherent. She was so unhappy with Donald Trump's speech. I liked Donald Trump's speech. I thought it was actually a pretty good speech, and it turned out that half of it was off the cuff, which isn't unusual for him anyway. But it was because somebody had apparently tampered with the teleprompter at the UN. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy.
Well, again, the UN is crazy. And it was nice that somebody finally went and told them to their face what a disgusting pool of anti-Semitic Marxists they are, and has nothing to do with improving civilization. They literally scheduled this meeting on Rosh Hashanah, knowing that
Right.
the Israeli contingency would not be able to come. Working so much with Israel and Jewish people after October 7th, I'm not Jewish, the UN has been a complete, there's really no word to describe the disgusting, despicable nature and what they've been doing, and literally having members at UNRWA that took hostages and killed Jews on October 7th. So it's nice to finally see someone walk up and tell them the truth, that they are partners in evil. They are contributing to the war in Ukraine by buying oil from Russia. They're all a bunch of hypocrites, and they use Free Palestine so their own countries don't come after them. So I think it was very healthy for President Trump to do it. I got a lot of joy in it. The fact that they stopped the escalator and cut his teleprompter again, I think just shows kind of the petty and kind of gross nature of the UN, and also the Secret Service fail. But anyways, I am encouraged that Mike Waltz is a good buddy of mine. Just got confirmed as UN ambassador. Literally
Right.
today, I saw he's calling out the UN for scheduling that on Rosh Hashanah. So I think you're going to have a voice of America, kind of like Nikki Haley was there, holding them accountable. And I think like what Trump likes to do, he likes to give people a chance. He gave Iran a chance. They didn't take it. He gave Putin a chance. Looks like he's not going to take it. He's going to give the UN a chance to redeem themselves. But I wouldn't be surprised if this keeps going, that they defund the UN, because the way it's going right now, it is a blight on civilization and should either be fixed or not exist. And Marco Rubio said that eloquently, as he always does, yesterday, saying there's potential at the UN, but what they're doing right now basically causes more war, causes more pain, causes more suffering. Certainly illustrated by all the countries recognizing Free Palestine, which again makes it almost impossible to get the hostages out and end this war. So
Right.
I'm excited to see Mike Waltz up there, and he's a Green Beret. He has no problem kicking ass, and certainly those folks out there need their ass kicked.
Well, won't get any argument with me on that. Let's talk a little bit about Ukraine. Obviously, you've been working with the Ukrainians and supporting the Ukrainians since the start of the war. You went over there to record that beautiful song with the Kiev Orchestra. I am surprised that they've lasted this long. It's really a testament to their national will, right, to resist. And also it's a testament to the fact that Russia they're claiming they're not a paper bear, but they are definitely not a world-class military, and it's showing, right? So I kind of thought that Putin would take the opportunity to cut a deal, and clearly Donald Trump did too. Now, I know I've been frustrated with the way that he's approached Ukraine, rhetorically speaking, over the last few months. I'm certain you probably were as well. But yesterday he said something very interesting, which was a couple things. First off, that he thinks that Ukraine could get all their territory back militarily, and maybe some in Russia, which is a huge turnaround from what he's been saying. But the other is that, and this was also kind of reported along with it, was that he had hoped that his relationship with Putin, I don't think he called it a friendship, I think he just called it a relationship with Putin, would have allowed them to find a way to come to some sort of mutually face-saving conclusion to the war. But clearly that's not going to happen, and he's going to move on. Basically, I think yesterday made it pretty clear that he was going to fully back Ukraine, at least in terms diplomatically, financially, and maybe militarily in terms of sending material. We're not going to send troops in there, obviously. But I think it was also a reaction to Russia trying to provoke NATO by going into Romanian airspace, and it's either Estonian airspace or Latvian or both. Estonia, okay. And somebody was asking me about that today. I'm just going to run this by you. And they said, well, what do you think that was about? I said, this is about Putin's escalate to de-escalate strategy. It's basically the only strategy he knows. He's not good at this. So his thing is to provoke or to make people worry about a wider war so that they'll give him more concessions. And I think what Donald Trump was saying yesterday was, when he said, if it was me, I would have shot him down.
Yeah.
That's his way of answering that back and saying, if you're going to provoke a war, you're not going to be happy with the outcome. First off, are you encouraged by what looks like, at least for right now, a real shift in position by Trump on Ukraine? And two, where do you think this goes?
Well, yeah, I mean, just look at Zelensky's face yesterday, it's big old smile
Yeah.
on his face. And, you got to be careful with Donald Trump, right? Because he just wants to make a deal. And he'll go to one side, he'll go to the other side. And I think, for decades, our enemies have been used to basically just, America talking and doing nothing. America talking and doing nothing. Joe Biden don't, and I think what Donald Trump has shown, that he will give you a chance, but if you embarrass him, nothing is off limits. I think bombing Iran's nuke sites changed the whole dynamic, because for the first time in decades, America backed up their words with action, serious action. And Donald Trump does not like to be embarrassed, and Putin has made him look like a fool. And you do not want to make Donald Trump look like a fool, because I do think he will take action. Now, what is that action? That's the question. I think what really will be interesting to see if the administration really gets with the Senate and passes these kind of draconian penalties on countries that are buying oil from Putin. Because Putin's happy to just sit there. The Russians always win the wars because they just slog it out. They don't care. They don't care how many of their own soldiers die. And I think Putin still feels he can do that. Slog it out, whatever. I'll get a little bit more. But if we really decimate his economy, I think that might get his attention. So again, I have really no faith in Putin doing anything, but I do appreciate President Trump finally coming to the mindset of, we know who the bad guy is. We know what we need to do to support, in my mind, the good guy. And we're not just going to say it, we're going to do it. So again, I'm always cautiously optimistic with these things, because sometimes the president can go one way or the other. But it is really nice to see that he's realized that he's been played. And most people that played Donald Trump regret it in the end. And let's hope Putin's one of those.
All right. Well, look, I mean, we should probably wrap this up here pretty quick. You're a busy man and you've got things to do, but I do want to come back to your upcoming tour.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you can go to fiveforfighting.com first off to find out all things that John's doing. That's just the website, fiveforfighting.com. He's also on Twitter at John Ondrasik. But so tell me about the tour. When does it start? When are you coming through Texas? All the important things.
Well, we just had a great show in Dallas with the rock band. We just played our final rock show at the Big E in Massachusetts on Sunday. And so now it's time, as we move into the fall, to bring out the Five for Fighting String Quartet, in my mind, the best string quartet in the world, that joins me and does these very more intimate shows. So we're doing the West Coast starting October 21st, starting in Arizona, going up California, Oregon, and Washington, which will be amazing. As we talked about earlier, my daughter's duo, Lace and Lee, will be opening for us, which is amazing. Yeah. And we always have some surprises. And again, these quartet players, they all play on Broadway. They blow my mind every night. So, it was great that you could kind of see the solo show, Ed, at the keynote, but we got to get you to the quartet show, and then
I'm looking forward to it,
show, man. And all the permutations of Five for Fighting. But we're so excited, and it's so much fun. And it's always like a little, family reunion when I get with my players. And so we're very excited about that.
All right. So again, if you're interested in the tour, go to fiveforfighting.com. The information will be up there. I'll be checking that out myself here pretty quickly, because I'm going to, and John invited me to the rock tour. I just had something that came up and I couldn't make it up to Dallas, and I just killed me. There was a reason why I wanted to go.
We'll be back. We'll be back.
Yeah, you'll be back. We'll eventually get that done. But boy, again, thank you so much for the invite to the Houston event, and for all the time that we got a chance to spend together. That was a lot of fun. And let's not forget again that your wife's book, Stop Trying, is coming out. At Carla Ondrasik is her Twitter handle. I don't know if is there going to be a website for the book? I mean, publishers sometimes do that. Yeah,
carlaondrasik.com. It's on
There you go.
Amazon right now. Just Google Stop Trying on Amazon. It's #1 in the category of her book. So people
That's
are
awesome.
kind of embracing it. And I think folks that kind of are looking for a little kind of direction in their lives will take some, and it has some great stories about her career in the music industry. Really funny, cool stories. So there's something for everyone. Thank you. I'd love to get your opinion after you read it, Ed. And thanks for being a great buddy. And thanks for everything Hot Air does. I always tell you this, but there's 3 websites I check every day, and Hot Air is one of them. So
I
I've been a
appreciate
fan
it.
forever. I'm a groupie too. I try not to fanboy out too much on your guys' stuff too, but I'll be seeing one of your colleagues, Jennifer Van Laar, tonight at Carla's Book
Oh,
Summit. So,
great.
so
Yeah,
it's the whole
she's great.
family's together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. And just, one last fanboy thing on the shopping carts. Still love them. You just got to get Walmart to replace their really, really crappy shopping carts with your good one. And I'm hoping that that's going to be news sometime soon, because
We're
those carts
definitely
are
working
terrible.
on that as we
Oh
speak.
my gosh. But I will tell you from a previous career, Walmart is not the easiest company to work with as a vendor. So my prayers will be with you, but hopefully you get that deal, because yeah, their shopping carts are.
They actually have some wonderful people there, and they understand that they want to serve their customers. And to me, what's the
Yeah,
first thing you touch is a shopping cart. So might as well be a good
absolutely.
one. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, check that out. Precision Wire, if you want to check that out too. So, you can look that up. But John Ondrasik, what a pleasure to spend some time with you talking about these really, meaty subjects, as well as some of the fun subjects. And I will look forward to talking to you again soon, sir.
Always a pleasure, Ed. Take care.